So further to our speakers and also to introduce myself, my name is Lone Pfeiffer. I'm the Secretary General of the Active House Alliance. My background is architecture, and then I have specialized with a master's degree in energy and green architecture, mainly because I would like to understand what the engineers are doing and saying and be able to discuss in depth with them. I have specialized in demonstration projects for several years, and I'm keen on discussing, elaborating, and pursuing innovation within sustainable buildings globally. Today I have three guests and presenters with me, and it is really a delight to be able to, very shortly, to pass on the word to Claire Kimball Johnson. Claire has been following the virtual gatherings actively, and that was an opportunity for me to get to know her work within renovation, which is what she will present, actually her master thesis, which I believe Claire presented and graduated on the 8th of June. So that will come with a big congratulations also. And first of all, the topic is incredibly important, but also secondly, focusing on the generations that will be working professionally with how we resolve our sustainable society, our sustainable and beautiful and connected society in 2050. Claire is indeed a representative of this generation, and we will also in the next virtual gatherings be focused on giving a voice and space to the next generations, because they are an incredibly important part of the new European Bauhaus movement. Following Claire's presentation, we will hear about a project called Regenerative, which is in Brussels, Belgium. It's a renovation project or a concept for renovation of affordable housing. And the first house was made in Brussels, and then it was followed and replicated. There is a principle. There are 7 principles forming the project. And this will be presented by the architect, Jonas Lindekens, and the engineer, Friedel Diekoch, who will present each the project from their professional viewpoint. And then following that, we will be able to have a Q&A to the speakers and hear from you in the audience. So please prepare for your questions. We have set aside until 11:30. Normally we use a little bit more than an hour, but it's too bad to have to stop a good discussion. So we make sure to have ample time to be able to discuss. So I think I have said my part, and I would like to pass on the word to Claire and look forward to hearing your presentation. And once again, Claire, congratulations on your graduation.
Thank you. Thanks. So I'll just take over the screen sharing now.
Please do.
Okay. So thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. I'm quite happy to share my master's thesis project that, yes, I defended almost a month ago now. And so I was a student at the Royal Danish Academy of Architecture, Design and Conservation. And I was part of a program called Strategic Design and Entrepreneurship, which is run with the Copenhagen Business School. So all of our projects have both a design or an architecture part, but then also a business side to it. So my project was called A Renovation Wave for Denmark, and it's a sustainability certification specifically for residential renovations. And as most of you may know, and especially because of why we're all here today, of course, there was a renovation wave for Europe, which was announced back in October of 2020. And it was trying to showcase that the European Union really wants to increase renovation in all EU member states. And they see this as a way of focusing a new way of building buildings by focusing on what we already have today. As Lone mentioned before, the buildings that we already have is a massive, massive amount. So instead of focusing on new, we should be focusing on making the old be able to go into the future. And of course, to be a little bit more actionable about this, they come up with a new European Bauhaus. My project decided to take this initiative, focusing on the three main categories that they have, being sustainability, quality of experience, and inclusion, and seeing how this could be brought within the Danish built environment. I was also interested in the three main kind of actions that they proposed: the creating networks and sharing knowledge, providing financial support to innovative ideas, and then also the focus on contemporary examples. They're looking to showcase examples of already existing projects or architecture that can showcase how we should build in the future. And they're also looking into digital initiatives. How can we make a more digital way of showcasing buildings that can be more accessible to more people? Of course, being based in Denmark and doing my master's thesis here in Copenhagen, I decided to look into how the new European Bauhaus can make a transformational change within the Danish built environment. Of course, there are many aspects of the Danish built environment, but I myself actually have over 6 years of experience within residential renovations and transformations. So I decided to look into the residential aspects of Denmark. And within this area, it's actually been a huge, almost twofold increase of private residential renovations over the past 2 years. Most of these requests for residential renovations and maintenance is actually going directly to contractors. That's how it often happens here in Denmark. They don't go to architects. Homeowners usually go directly to a contractor or even try to do the project themselves. And many studies have actually found that renovation is not only ecologically interesting, but also extremely economically interesting for homeowners and for the state of Denmark. However, this increase in renovations is causing a lot of problems. Over 4 out of 5 renovations within Denmark actually end up causing damage to cultural heritage. This is often because they're using the wrong materials or methods. And then, of course, spending trying to fix these errors is a huge burden for both the state and for homeowners. Why is this happening? Most of these renovations over the past 5 to 10 years are focusing only on energy renovation. They're looking how to reduce CO2 emissions, but they're not looking at the holistic principles. They're not looking at the cultural heritage, which is very rich here in Denmark. They're not looking at the social aspects of a renovation. And so they need to be changed quite fast. They're not a long-term renovation. Also here in Denmark, different from other European countries, most homeowners go directly to a contractor, as I said before. They actually don't go to an architect. Whereas, for instance, in France and Italy, you're required by law to have an architect be involved in the project if it's over 120 square meters. So my project looked into, could architects be the answer to these problems? I conducted a number of interviews with architects within Denmark, including with the Association of Residential Architects and with some homeowners and contractors. And I found that, first of all, architects have a hard time convincing homeowners that sustainability is something to invest in. These projects are often very small budgets. So once the budget gets tight, often sustainability is one of the first things to get left to the side. They also say that they're lacking a common vocabulary. They don't know how to explain to clients what is sustainability, what is holistic sustainability. And they also say they don't know where to find materials and methods. There's an accessibility problem. Therefore, my project proposed a communication strategy, a way to share knowledge, and tried to really focus on measurable criteria to show between the architects and the homeowners what is sustainability. Of course, this led me to look into sustainability certifications, of which there are already many, including the Active House certification. However, I found that most of these certifications focus on new build projects, often quite large scale, and most of them are too expensive for these small budget projects. So instead, my project looks into how can we make a low-cost certification that's really on a nonprofit model, that's also looking in at full encompassing holistic certification. The proposal is called First Circle Renovations, and it's a holistic sustainability certification, which focuses on 4 elements: the social, environmental, economic, and cultural. Of course, the first 3 are quite typical within sustainability certifications, but the 4th, the cultural, really tries to showcase that thinking about cultural heritage and making sure that it's preserved is important for sustainability and for making sure that our buildings are actually going to be used for the next 100, 200 years. Within Denmark, this is quite important since there's such a rich cultural heritage within residential typologies. The other criteria, of course, they're broken down into subcategories that would all be measured within the sustainability certification system. How is this used? The idea is that, of course, it would come the initial idea for a renovation project from homeowners. They would then go to a digital space where the certification is housed and knowledge is shared about it. And then they would find an architect. It would have to be used with an architect to help them through the process. And the architect would use the sustainability certification as a design tool. So they would make sure that the certification is being used throughout the entire project process, rather than as a retroactive look back to see if it's sustainable. This way, we're making sure that within the design, the construction, and the assessment, that all the criteria is met. And then, of course, there would be a final assessment and a certification will be made for the project. I decided to make a mock-up for my project about how this certification could be showcased within a website. The website, of course, would focus on sharing knowledge about the certification, what it is, why is holistic renovation important. It would also give very actionable and specific examples of how each sustainability criteria can be met, showcasing methods and processes. And then it would also show projects that had used the certification system. Something that I've found looking into other certification systems is that they don't really showcase what are the specific buildings that are being used. So in this certification system, it would really try to showcase the cultural heritage of the different building typologies and really try to give knowledge sharing about why residential typologies are interesting for homeowners. Then within the project showcases, it would try to be very accessible, very showcasing why this project has received a certification. In many of the existing certification systems, it's difficult for homeowners who are not technical architects to understand why a specific project has been given a certification. They need to know a little bit more visually, more specifically, why this project has met the criteria. So within this website mockup, it shows very specifically how each criteria is met, showcasing within the design what steps were taken by the architect to make sure that this project is sustainable. It would also show how, for instance, adding skylights can become a way to assess different parts of the sustainability criteria. So you're assessing well-being by adding daylight for the homeowners, but you're also helping with energy conservation by renovating the roof and maybe adding in more adaptability by making more spaces in the home more usable. Of course, there would be many different criteria that would showcase. I'm just showing a quick kind of preview today, but it would also try to make sure that the cultural heritage of these buildings is protected during the renovation process. It would also show what are the specific interesting parts of the cultural heritage that is being preserved to make sure people are understanding what it is. So it's also proposing that there could be a collaboration platform to make sure that architects, homeowners, and contractors are using the certification throughout the process. Of course, this is just a mock-up. It would be produced much more in depth later on. Of course, throughout the project, I was collaborating with stakeholders, talking with architects, understanding what the challenges are for them with sustainability, also with homeowners, with building industry professionals such as contractors. But another big one is within Denmark, the many organizations that have a lot of political influence within this market. Within architecture, cultural heritage, sustainability, there's a number of organizations that coordinate together, fund projects. They're the ones that really make the changes. The cultural changes need to happen so that architects are more involved with these projects. And I've had a lot of back and forth with them, and we'll see if the project gets developed a bit later on into something that they can all contribute to. So if you're interested and you want to learn a bit more, you can go to renovatedenmark.com and you can sign up to receive a newsletter about the projects if you're interested to see how it'll be developed in the future. And thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Claire. That was a very professional presentation. Yes, there is applause, the online applause. I think there's a number of questions also that I would definitely like to ask you, but I think we will do that when we have also heard about the demonstration project in Brussels.